All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Vinny Presents. Today, it is my pleasure to bring to you actor, producer, and overall just wonderful person who's very talented in many ways, also in music. Adam Ratcliffe, welcome to the show.
Vinny, thank you for having me. Appreciate
It's a pleasure to have. It's a pleasure to have a local guy on, right? Bucks County.
Yes, sir. Born and raised Bucks County, PA, Abington.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, so you're right in our neck of the woods, which is always a an exciting thing. We love showcasing our Pennsylvania people. So, Adam, let's get started. Let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm trying to get better at this because I'm long-winded. I was born in Abington, Pennsylvania, raised in little township, Jamison, Pennsylvania. It's about 15 minutes from the most notorious place in our area, which is Doylestown. It's a historic place, known for artists, Margaret Mead. Pink is the big name if you want to talk about contemporary artists. But so Pink was from my hometown. And good friend of mine, Justin Guarinia, who I like to plug, Little Sweet. Dr. Pepper. He'll appreciate that. But we actually graduated together and sang in select choir in high school. So my mom is a school bus driver, has been my whole life. She still is for Del Valle University. She takes them to New York City. Real tough old lady, more like a New Yorker than anybody I've ever met. Her parents met in New York City. They were both from Toronto, and they were artists. My mother's mother was Canada's top model at 18. She was 6'1", and her father was an off-Broadway actor in New York City when her father met my grandmother. So the artistic kind of gregarious actor in me comes from that side of the family, but it was kind of the perfect storm because my father owned a pub. He still does to this day. We celebrated 50 years, 10 years ago almost. So almost 60 years ago, my grandfather, after World War II, opened the Warwick Tavern in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. It's a little plug. It's a staple in the community. It's kind of a mountain bar in a yuppie town nowadays, but it definitely has some of the best food around. And
sorry to interrupt you. Mention that place one more time.
The Warwick Tavern in Warwick. It's Warwick Town, Jamison, PA, Warwick Township. And my father, he plays Santa every single year, one of Santa's helpers, and has for a very long time now. So he had the beard. I've never seen my father without it my whole life. And way before, the Jason Kelce's of the world made it cool to be a bearded male. So he was a Marine. His father fought in World War II. He was from Olney and moved up here, I guess, to raise a family. My dad has 8 sisters and a brother who passed away of cancer in 97, my Uncle Tom. And Uncle Tom was the most Philly guy you'd ever meet. So I kind of had this perfect storm. I met him when I was 7. He got out of Graterford prison. And he was a real, not a fake tough guy, a real tough guy. He was very familiar with K&A down in Kensington. And he, let's just say we grew up a lot faster once Uncle Tom came into the picture because he kind of schooled us on what it was to be a street kid. And luckily, we were all athletic. And my mom and dad split when I was 4. So we kind of started with the athletics, which also introduced me to the Philly environment because I played in the Keystone State League. And I knew I was talking to you today, so I looked up some of the youth athletic clubs down there, and it was like, Ivy, it's about an hour from me, some of these places, but down by South Philly. So I spent a lot of time with my mother, my single mother at the time, driving home late at night through Broad and Olney. And so I kind of had this perfect, Mike Tyson-esque story of I was this tough guy who played sports and was being raised by football coaches because I was number 4 son to my mother. And I started with the athletics way earlier than my brothers. So they kind of paved the way for me to become a success story in the athletics because I sang. This kind of sums up the whole story. We had a jukebox that was a hand-me-down from my dad's bar in my home, and my mother kept the home. And so I was like this kind of chameleon that could emulate Michael Jackson and Bruce Springsteen and all these oldies, 16 Tons and Elvis Presley, literally the Motown era as well. So I just became this chameleon kid that kind of transitioned into the arts by happenstance because teachers heard me sing. But really, I was a shy kid. that played sports and was kind of getting the aggressions of being from a broken home and growing up in a bar. And there was tension, man. There was no heat a couple times in my life. We had a kerosene heater. My mother had to heat the water on the stove to get showers in the morning. So coming from Bucks County, that was irregular. There was a different environment in my house that I started to become aware of that the older I got, which ultimately helped me, I think, to excel in sports, because I used a lot of the anger. I teach my son, like, when you get angry, when you get agitated in sports, you have to focus it in. And that's what I was able to do. I was able to really utilize some of the tensions and anxieties I had in those days to kind of excel and make a name for myself in the athletics. And one thing led to another. When people heard I could sing, they started to put me on stage. So kind of fast forward to junior high, a big play was coming through my junior high school called Bye Bye Birdie. And it was a blue ribbon junior high school, which is like one of the top junior highs in the country. And seventh grade, I'm up there in a gold suit. And I would literally leave wrestling practice as the captain of the wrestling practice to go sing with these, what I perceive to be goofy artist kids, right? But I was like a duck in water, and it just kind of the first standing ovation I got, I was like hooked, and from that moment on, it became less of a novelty, or less of a something to be made fun of. Because I remember my brothers making fun of me early on when I did like the little third grade plays, and they put makeup on you and stuff like that, and they were meathead football player guys who I looked up to. But at this point, it was like I had arrived in the acting world, and it was very embraced. And it wasn't just me. It was just a group of people that were extremely skilled, because we have the Bucks County Playhouse down in New Hope. And a lot of these kids were already making money in junior high on stage. So it was like, again, when I say a duck in water, I was able to keep up with them. Conrad didn't have many lines. So, I want to say I was a natural, but really I was a good singer who could stand there and look good in the gold suit, So that's the story of how I got into entertainment and kind of got the bug for the standing ovation. So I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, that's a great story, and listen, I think a lot of people can identify with the struggles, especially, Philly. I know the deal. I was born in South Philly, but I have been through like every part of the city, literally. And I know Albany very well. I know that there's a beautiful memorial to the World War I soldiers on 5th and Tabor at the library there. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I would walk around Albany looking at some of those houses and wondering like, wow, I wonder who lived here. It's still a very beautiful neighborhood. And, K&A, unfortunately, it's got its issues, but I think that's going to make a rebound. But
I hope so. I really do.
Yeah, no, I believe it will. I think that's just, it's up to the politicians. I hate to say it that way.
Well, just to kind of plug something, I'm a writer as well. I had a screenplay that I wrote called The Philly Kid that was picked up by Warner Brothers. And I literally, after 10 years of, I got the story by check, and I collaborated when I lived in Los Angeles for a brief 6 months with a writer that went on to write 21 Bridges, which grossed $50 million. His name is Adam Mervis. He was my roommate. I pitched him this story about a mixed martial artist from Philadelphia who went to Drexel, who grew up in a group home and kind of wound up in a prison for defending one of his friends against an officer who was tasing him. And he gets out of prison and winds up in this underground fight club. Now, it came out the same time as Warrior, the movie The Warrior. And we actually pitched The Philly Kid to Tap Out. But long or the short, I moved back home and was in the Real Police Academy in Conshohocken in my 18th week, becoming a real cop, so I could augment money. Because I had heard about cops in the area that were actors as well. And I had done 9 years of acting. So he calls me. I'm in week 18, kind of healing up from a relationship, circumstantial stuff. And I was feeling better. And he says, hey, Warner Brothers just put out about $1 million to start casting The Philly Kid. We got Jason Connery, Sean Connery's son, directing it, Michael Jai White, Devon Sawa. Where do I send this contract, and where do I send the check? You need to sign it within 24 hours or they're going to move on to the next script. So he sends me literally a $2,000 story by check and a contract to sign within 24 hours. And I did. But what happened was I paid a casting person to be auditioned for my own brainchild. And when Joel Silver, the owner of the CEO of Warner Brothers After Dark Pictures, found out there were two writers, they didn't want both of us on set, because the more you do this, the more you learn, like, when there's money and creative control, they want to kind of cut out the dead weight. And because I was out of position, and mind you, I'm the only one from the Philly area with a screenplay called The Philly Kid that was being made by Warner Brothers in New Orleans, right? So that's my story. And the reason I told you is because I went on to write something about a street performer in Kensington. And that is my dream, to eventually get down there when it is safe enough to shoot a film in Kensington and shoot it. Because we did a short film there several years ago, right under the L. But the reason that came about, because I met a guy named Mark McGraw, who happens to be Tim McGraw's brother.
Wow.
Do you know Tim McGraw's story?
No, not as well as I should, but
You're a Phillies fan, right?
well, Tim McGraw, yeah, I thought you meant his brother, but Tim McGraw, yeah, of course.
Tim McGraw is a singer. He's a country singer. So Mark introduced me to Tim, and I learned that Tug McGraw, being Tim's father, was a World Series pitcher for the Phillies in '83.
Right.
Now, Tim didn't know his last name was McGraw. His name was literally Smith up until he was 12 years old, and he found his birth certificate in his mother's closet. On it said Tug McGraw. He had a poster of Tug McGraw in his bedroom because he was a baseball fan, but he didn't know his favorite pitcher was his father from the World Series. Yeah, so that was kind of, I got burned with The Philly Kid, but that's the screenplay that I have been hustling for many years that led to St. Michael of the City. I just haven't been able to get it off the ground. But all these other projects, documentaries, and St. Michael of the City kind of came to fruition before it, for whatever reason. So that's who I am. I'm kind of like a chameleon who likes to tell stories, and I've studied for many years. I started going to New York City in 2002, August 2002, in an acting class with Vincent D'Onofrio. If you don't know him, he's in Kingpin. He's Kingpin and Daredevil. But he was best known for Gomer Sergeant Pyle and Full Metal Jacket. And I got very lucky because I was in an acting class with a friend of mine whose daughter was on Broadway. And she went on to marry Jeremy Allen White. Now, I'm dropping names only because it's relative to today, because he just won a Golden Globe. But my story is pretty interesting, and I'm finally getting to tell it. So
yeah, it's great, man. And I'm really, I should mention, by the way, that I want to thank Tom LaVecchia for introducing us, at least virtually. So Tom, big shout out to Tom LaVecchia from New Theory Podcast. Thanks for sending Adam our way.
Tom is honestly, like, I'm pinching myself. I don't know what to do with this attention. I'm a little socially awkward because there's so much to say, and people are asking me for 2-sentence summaries, and I'm like, I can't summarize 22 years in two sentences. So I'm trying.
Nah, you're doing well. And listen, there's a lot to tell. Unfortunately, with the way things are, it's hard to get everything out. And then you always forget something anyway. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, the key points are there. Like, I feel like I'm just kind of scratching the surface here. I've been able to, again, get some projects out of the mud and onto the big screen. And that's a little miracle of it in itself. And I mean, I was just in my hero, Bruce Springsteen's hometown, with a premiere of a film that St. Michael the City, Kevin wrote it. It's a fascinating story that, like, I read in one sitting, and kind of how that came about. Kevin is an actor that I met many years ago, who's also an independent filmmaker. I think you've had him on, right?
What's his full name?
Kevin Interdonato. He's the writer of St. Michael the City.
I haven't had him on, but I would love to.
Okay. So the long and the short, he led me to Tom. And now we're doing, obviously, the pitch for St. Michael the City, which comes out April 5th on Amazon. And he also did a film with Tom Sizemore. And I met Kevin in Midtown Manhattan on a script that he wrote called Blue Collar Boys that went on and got a nice distribution deal in 2008. So kind of cut from the same cloth. He's from North Jersey. I'm from the Philly area, but like a wrestler, like a real tough looking dude. Actually fought in Baghdad, which is one of the shout outs I love to give him, because obviously who wouldn't, right? He's a real tough guy, and I respect tough guys, and with honor. So he's just really stayed in touch with me. And even though he didn't cast me in Blue Collar Boys many years ago, we just kind of kept following each other's careers. And because I did a doc on Tom Sizemore, Kev kind of jumped in on it because he had a lot to say about Tom, because he did a film called, hold on, let me get it out, Bad Frank. And it's actually a huge independent film that Tom was in that was a hit in Germany, and Kevin is the lead. He plays Frank. So I raised right around $170,000 from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, to document the end of Tom Sizemore's life. It's aged me about 8 years and 2 years, because it's just been, he was not very well, and I knew it. I'm sober 25 years. So we started in the beginning of COVID, and the first week I was out there in Sacramento doing the interviews, and he was just sweaty, and it was just sad because Tom was one of the actors, and I've acted with many A-listers at this point. But he was one of those that I was sitting across from, and he had such a compelling magnetism about him, and his impressions. He did an impression of Robert De Niro that was uncanny and was just so powerful, and like he transformed into De Niro in front of you. And when he told his story, he's actually, believe it or not, a graduate got a master's degree at Temple. Wow, Tom Sizemore. And he's one of those actors, like a diamond in the rough, that went on his first few auditions and landed the acting jobs right out of the gate in New York City. Born on the 4th of July was one of them, Oliver Stone. But a fascinating study. We have a 4 one-hour docuseries coming in the next few months here. So we're getting an entertainment attorney to broker the deal. It's all being buttoned up, and obviously it didn't end the way we wanted it to. We wanted them to get well and kind of have a third act. But again, documentaries are meant to tell the story, and kind of one thing led to another. Kevin brought me St. Michael the City because of that. And I said, listen, I might have just gotten lucky to have raised this capital for this documentary, but I'll read your script and see what happens. I read it in one sitting. It reminded me of State of Grace, film from the 90s, kind of also like The Town with Ben Affleck. And lo and behold, I asked them to put a finance package together, and we put it out. And one thing led to another, and we were on set within 6 months of me reading the script in Trenton, New Jersey.
You make it sound very easy.
No. It was lightning striking, and it took and in the interim of this, you gotta understand, I was also recurring on a series called Invasion. So I was just having like this little pocket full of, you've had enough pain, kid. You've done a lot of footwork. There's a little bit of luck involved. I don't want to say there isn't. But just something happened where I was not willing to take no for an answer for the first time in my life. And I had conviction when I put these things out there, because I knew I had done the work. Whereas, and that's my biggest lesson to people who are getting into the industry today, is like, you cannot fake experience. You cannot fake getting your tail kicked for 20 years. Some people are just like geniuses, and they just get it, and they're just evolved humans. Like Dakota Fanning was one of the greatest child actresses I've ever seen. But she didn't need to go through the channels that somebody like me, who had an 800 on his SAT scores in high school, that had to struggle to get into college. I needed to go through the lumps of all those years of auditioning and rejections, and to get to the point where I was like, you know what? I understand you're just 24 years old, Mr. Casting Person. You don't like hold my fate in the palm of your hands. I'm going to make acting decisions that 30 other actors would not make. And I'm going to take my time to do it. Like in the beginning, you're nervous because they hold your fate and your what happens after when you're doing an audition. It takes time to get to that spot where you got, the backbone in order to own your space. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming to. It sounds arrogant. I hope it doesn't sound too arrogant, but it's where I'm at. And I'm allowing myself to feel, not that I've arrived, but, that I've earned it a little bit, because let's face it, actors are insecure. And I'm like, how did this happen? Seeing my film in the Garden State Film Festival is beyond my wildest. But the truth of the matter is, like, 20 years is a long time. And, I had the same agent in Midtown Manhattan for 18 of those years, and I've moved on to a better agency finally. So if it's the hardest spot is leveling up, I'm at that spot now. and I can't wait to see what happens. Let's just put it that way. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think there's a lot more to come, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's not arrogance. I think that it's like you said, you use the word conviction. You have to have conviction in life, and you have to have the guts to just not even just put the blinders on and and just go for it. And in this business, it's very easy for a person to feel intimidated, low self-esteem, vulnerable, sensitive. There's a lot of emotions that go in because let's face it, this is very nothing just about all creativity, and you're using yourself. So there's a lot you're a lot of yourself is involved in that stake. So but it's good. That's a good lesson to learn too. You have to have that conviction. That's it.
Yeah,
To me,
and the conviction
thing.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. The conviction is a lot of it, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this also, is because my wife and my son exist. You know what I mean? Like the life stuff that happened, knowing that my son is like my heart outside of my body. It's like something that I never experienced before. That's already that's already the gift, that I have to maintain and nurture. Everything else is icing on the cake. And trust me, like there are days where I feel like, man, am I doing enough to move us forward? But I remember when my son was coming into the world, my agent said, children bring luck. And I just kind of said, let me manifest that, because I'm scared to death that that's not the truth, that it's going to I'm going to become this heavy. I don't know. Like I'm real into fitness and maintaining my cop look, right? Because I play cops. So he was good luck, and he has brought me nothing but joy. And my wife, it keeps me centered. It's not easy, man. Like, trust me, we're both simple people. I don't necessarily love red carpets. I like the acting and the process of putting a team together because of the sports background that I have. I kind of just infiltrated all of that background of creating a team and utilized that. And I think that's ultimately been what has got me here today.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. I mean, look, I share the same opinion. I have 3 children of my own that are small, and I'm already wealthy. I'm already lucky in that sense. So everything else is gravy, as they say. Okay, let's talk about. You mentioned the Garden State Film Festival. Tell us what just happened with that.
Okay, so we were, I guess, the centerpiece for the Saturday night showing. It was very crowded. It was the first time we had an actual audience. We won't be in another festival. A lot of us are veterans. We've been around for a long time at this point, and actors and producers and directors. Festivals are cool, and I don't want to disparage them, but it gets a little redundant. Kind of patting each other on the back, because let's face it, you got to make a living, right? If you're an actor and you have a family, you got to make a living, and you can tell people till you're blue in the face that it's your passion, but eventually somebody's going to say how much money you made at that, right? So that's where I'm at. And I was grateful that we got into it, because it's a gold standard film festival. We're only going to be in another one in Iowa, which is interesting. If I can afford it, we'll go. But there was a huge crowd. My family and friends came up from Bucks County. There were a lot of New Jerseyans, a lot of established actors and producers. And so I'm learning what a rollout is for a centerpiece film that is a Jersey-based film. And we're talking to press coast to coast at this point. So it's kind of heating up. I'm learning what it is to be a producer, and how to basically mass expose your film all at the same time, so that it's timed right, so that your marketing is lined up and people don't go, oh, where can we watch it? And you go, a month from now it'll be somewhere. You want to line it up that it's like 3 days away. So I'm aching with anticipation, and I have been since we started the other project, the documentary. But again, St. Michael has been the silver lining, and I just can't wait till this Sunday when I'm going to be mass emailing and text messaging everybody on my Rolodex.
That's
We're
awesome,
here, baby.
man. Congratulations with that. Okay,
Thanks,
so what? And by the way, anybody who's just watching, if they're wondering, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. But let them know where they can find you.
Oh, AdamRatcliffe.net. Man, that sounds pretentious. AdamRatcliffe.net it is, though. I had taught at Rider University last semester, and my students are like, hey, how did you get your website to look so professional? I'm like, I became a professional actor. I worked on professional jobs. Like that's what you have to do. You can't just create. I mean, people will eventually figure out that, you know, there's smokes and mirrors going on if you don't do the work. And I'm very much about doing the work, Vinny. And again, I can't emphasize that enough. More than anything, I love teaching and knowing that people are growing from what it is that I'm able to teach them. And a lot of it has to do with getting my tail kicked, you know, and being on the other side of it a little bit now. I'm kind of having menopause and tearing up from time to time, that it's like you can really take a look back and see how far. Just, yeah, I used to pedicab in between auditions in New York City with like $5 in my pocket on a Friday when rent was due, you know, and not know if I was going to make $500 or $50. And it's been a really interesting life for a long time. So,
and Adam, you know, not to interrupt you, but I understand the suffering you're talking about and some of your childhood. I understand that myself. And that's the beauty, though, of, you don't realize it then because it's really miserable. And some people don't survive those type of childhoods. It does create a lot of trauma later on. But if you're able to utilize it and just change your perspective on it, it actually empowers you. So a lot of suffering does lead to a lot of empowerment if you just view it the right way and use it the right way. And I think that's true I know it's true in my life, and I think it's also true in your life. You've been able to, you know, change a negative into a positive, which I think that in itself is a very good message. But what would you say to people that are just kind of like, they want to get involved maybe as an actor or filmmaker, but they're a little scared. They don't have that confidence. What would you say to them?
well, I was thinking about it as I left the gym. I mean, I'm thinking about my son. He just went on his first like actual audition, and it was like kind of a callous environment. And I was feeling the weight of the room because the auditioner has been around a very long time, and she was kind of setting the stage for him to be nervous. And I knew what she was doing. He's 10 years old, but he was thrown into the deep end, and I kind of felt like, you know, again, my heart outside of my body, experiencing what I experienced at 18 or 22 in New York City. You know, you can't just be fearless. You know that you're going to be afraid. You got to do it anyway, and that's life. You know, not to sound cliche or to quote Sylvester Stallone, you just keep. How many hits can you take and keep moving forward? Because that you are going to get hit. You can fake it till you make it only so many times. But for me, the best solution I ever learned is a problem shared is a problem cut in half. I try to say there's power in numbers. And I like to talk about a problem so that the problem doesn't remain a problem. It becomes, you find a solution, because there's a lot of solutions to every single problem, right? If you just bog yourself down with it, then all of a sudden you start to do things that are a little irrational. You start to say things that are a little irrational, and you don't even know why, right? So I like to say we're all kind of garbage cans. We need to empty the garbage as we go along, and do it in a way that you're not, you know, being selfish to a friend, but knowing who your friends are that will nurture you and in turn help you also deal because they've been there before. So I talk to actors and I tell them, like, listen, yes, there's going to be suffering, but if you believe you have a talent and you enjoy your talent, don't listen to anybody, because people are going to negate what you've done. People are always going to, you know, try to minimize that. They still do it to me, you know, and I've made lots of headway in this industry. And to be clear, I've made a living quite a few times in the entertainment industry when 2% of people actually have. You know, I've been on $200 million sets many, many times. And I'm allowing myself now, after 22 years, to say those things to you. It took me a long time, felt arrogant, but it's a kind of revelation to me. And I believe fully my gift is my song, kind of like Elton John. I can sing better than I'm like a natural actor. I had to work at acting. Naturally, I can sing pretty well and sound like a lot of different people. Acting, I didn't do an audition for 3 years in New York City. I studied with Vincent D'Onofrio, one of the best to do it. And I was very blessed. You know, I don't talk about luck in my life. That was the luckiest that I had ever become, studying with him. So I, in turn, teach acting because of what I learned from him, because he taught me to just be still, to be vulnerable, and And he taught me that there's a solution to every single problem. You don't have to feel bogged down, even if you're doing a broken down character who's dealing with awful issues, awful circumstances. He taught me to be myself in the character circumstances. And because I come from kind of a broken place, I'm able to utilize all that stuff. What I teach my students, to put it down, watch comedy at nighttime before you go to bed, because a lot of people will burn out because it is entertaining, some of the stuff that we watch that's dark, right? So make sure that you're not always going to the dark spaces. I think that's really important for any artist that gets into it, because it's compelling when we talk about pain and when we talk about divorce and cheating on an ex or falling in love and hearts breaking. All that stuff's painful, and that's what we use for marketing and acting. So the important thing when you become an actor, you don't have to carry that stuff with you. Yes, it's pretend, but we're like honest liars to a degree, professional liars. But it's important to maintain some sort of balance in your everyday emotional being. Does it make sense?
And release the pressure valve every once in a while.
Well, I also say be a person. If nobody said you have to go into it and not have a relationship or not have a marriage or job outside. Obviously, you got to pay the bills, right? Some of my famous friends still work jobs, and I, unbeknownst to me, they just revealed it to me recently. Brian O'Harlan's a good friend of mine from Clerks. He told me he's worked the job the whole time. It's important to find balance and other interests. We're not just one thing, I feel like a lot of the people that burn out and ultimately end up sacrificing their life, the Heath Ledgers of the world, they get so enveloped in it and they lose themselves.
Yeah. That's just like anything in life. There has to be a limit. There has to be a balance. Well, listen, Adam, it's been a pleasure, man. I really, really enjoyed this discussion. Let's again remind everybody where they can find you. What was that website again? It's
AdamRatcliffe.net and Rat's Corner Pulpit on Instagram. Rat's Corner, like a little rat preaching to a church. Rat's Corner Pulpit on Instagram.
Well, we'll also make sure to put that in the description box. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you check the description box for the links. If you're listening to it, then as he said, follow him there and just look up Adam Ratcliffe. I'm sure you'll find plenty of stuff to learn more about him. Adam, it's been a pleasure. Any last words?
Stay fit, stay mentally fit. I'm looking at the Rocky steps. You're making me want to do some steps, man. Love your neighbor, and always, always, always do unto people what you would have done to yourself. I mean, it's really simple. I really try to walk in the light, even when the chips seem down. This too shall pass. That's my motto.
Amen. Always do the right thing, brother. Adam, it has been a pleasure. Again, everyone, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it wholeheartedly. And stay tuned for more beautiful work from Adam Ratcliffe.
St. Michael of the City, April 5th, Amazon.
There you go. Check it out. Make sure you don't. Thank you again, Adam.